Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's presentation. Thanks for taking the time to come out. Hopefully, you'll enjoy this. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the Perl application development and refactoring environment, also known as Padre. Give everybody a second to read that. So basically, it's a Perl editor that's written in Perl, although you can actually edit a lot of other things in it, as you can with most IDEs or text editors, but its primary focus is on Perl. So it was started in 2008 by Gabor Szabo. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He won the White Camel Award, which is basically an advocacy award in the Perl world. 2008, there were several other people. I'll just bring that up real quick so you can kind of see what that is. Mostly it's so you can look at it later after I put the slides up. Uses WxWidgets, which I don't know, was anybody here at the talk? We got at least one person. I presented WxWidgets a while ago, I don't know, last year or something. Using WxPerl, which are the Perl bindings for WxWidgets. WxWidgets, just for those of you who weren't there, briefly is cross-platform GUI widget set that uses the native widgets of whatever system it's on. So if you're on Windows, it looks like a native Windows application. If you're on Linux, it's GTK. On Mac, you know, you're going to get everything looking the way it is. Not exactly like TK, where it's kind of sort of looks native on some systems, but not quite. At least the last time I used it. Maybe it's a little better than it was when I used it then. All right. Basically, there is an editor component that this is centered on called Scintilla, which is basically goes along with the same idea as WxWidgets. It's basically an editor widget that's cross-platform. But most importantly, it's not just any editor, because there are plenty of editor widgets. This one is specifically designed for editing code. So it's got things like folding and line numbering and syntax highlighting and stuff that you would expect for code type things. So anyways, if you want, you can check that out too on the when I put the slides up. And of course, this is going to keep going back and forth now, I just realized. Okay, like I said, cross-platform, at least as far as these systems. I don't know if it's running on any other Unix systems or not. Theoretically, anything else that's running GTK, I would assume you can probably get it working on, but I know about these for sure. It's got support for Perl 5 and 6, and not just whatever Perl 6 is on that particular day, but also like PIR and some of the intermediate forms of Perl 6 are also supported. Okay, any questions so far? All right. Okay, we're just going to look first at a few of the standard features that you pretty much expect in any kind of IDE or editor you use. I'll kind of breeze through those because most everybody here knows what those are. So, oh yeah, disclaimer. I'm running the Subversion version of this, so if it happens to crash while I'm running this presentation, don't necessarily read anything into it because this is a pre-release version I'm using. So just keep that in mind. I actually haven't had it crash on me yet, so but just thought I'd give the disclaimer. All right, so if you've got the typical things, multiple ways to open files. You've got recent files, which of course is handy. It's got session management, so you can save and load named sessions. And you can also, there's a little checkbox you'll see when I load a session. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and just load one of them now. I've only got 2 of them here for this presentation. It's got this little checkbox to save the session automatically, which means if you open or close any of the tabs during that session, after you close the editor, that's the new session, is whatever tabs you've got open. Particularly, it's nice if you're opening more files. It'll just automatically add those to the session for you. So I'll go ahead and open that just so we've got some code to look at. I just upped the font size. Normally it's not quite that big, although actually, I forgot now that I got it on the big screen, I can actually probably make it a little bigger.
There you go. Can you move 1/2 step closer?
Oh, sure.
There you go. I know probably it's a little uncomfortable, but
no, that's fine.
A lot better.
Okay. So I'll just whiz through a couple more, cut and paste. You've got next problem, next difference, brace matching, joining lines like you can do in VI, convert line endings, and convert back and forth between spaces and tabs. Most generates patches for you. You can filter through an external tool, like I don't know if anybody uses Vim, but that's something I do a fair amount. That's kind of a nice thing to do. You could also just filter it straight through Perl, and it will actually just take your whole text as one block, and then you can run a multi-line, regular expression against it or something like that. So, okay, you can see I've got several of these things checked. There are even more that they have that I don't have checked, but I'll kind of talk about some of the important ones. You've got a version control one here I haven't messed with yet, but it supports different version control systems. You've got your MIME types here, so you can switch if your line endings, or not line endings, if your file extension doesn't happen to be correct for whatever the type is and it doesn't guess right, there's where you can fix it. So I've got a few other things like white space is turned on. So I don't know if you can see those little dots there. I've got code folding is on. The CPAN Explorer is really nice because I can just type in a name, of a module, and hopefully something will happen. Oh, did I? See, I can't read it from here. I'll try that again. Thank you. Okay. I may have lost my network connection or something. Oh, did I?
No, you just FIL:.
Oh, okay. I did the same thing again, in other words. All right. Oh, okay, great. So you can bring up the documentation. The feature I really like here is copy the synopsis, because that's almost always what I do. When I start with a new thing is I usually so this will literally, you just say insert synopsis, it'll open a new tab with, just put the code in there for you. So that's nice and convenient. No, don't want to save that. You've also got code outline here, which I'll show you a little later when we've got more interesting code to look at than a Hello World program. And just the list of functions. They've also got filters up here, so if you're working on a much larger program and you've got a huge list there, you can start typing and it'll filter it out. Yeah, Brian?
So does the CPAN, can you just like drag and drop the modules onto your project, or?
No, actually, you can just install them from here, and then they'll just be available. Yeah, and then most of the time when you do the insert synopsis, then you just copy and paste whatever you need to get the module going for you. So that's about it. So let me go back to my notes because I'm winging it here. Okay. Oh yeah, automatic project detection. It is pretty smart about if you're working on a module that you're writing yourself, it can, excuse me, it'll actually detect the directory structure of a module. And so it, in the project tab here, it'll actually put you in the root of that and consider that as a project without having to create, project files, which most IDEs want to do is create their own project files. It just goes, oh, yeah, this looks like a Perl module to me. I'll dump you in the root directory so then you can have easy access to all the files that are within that, that module. So that's pretty cool too. CPAN Explorer we talked about. Oh yeah, Perl parsing is another fun one. You've got a specific Perl menu item here. So this isn't going to be anything terribly surprising, but if you've got a nasty piece of code and you have no idea what it does, it can be really nice to just select it and it'll just pop up and tell you how Perl sees that piece of code. Doesn't actually makes mine more complicated in this case, but in a lot of cases it'll make it less complicated and allow you to hopefully figure out what the heck it does.
So does that work for regular expressions too? Can you do?
I haven't tested that yet, but actually there's a regular expression editor I'm going to get to in a few minutes.
Okay.
So it'll also do things like find unmatched braces, which everybody knows every once in a while. A lot of times Perl is good about telling you where the error is. Every once in a while you miss a brace, a closing brace, and it gives you some screwy error and you have no clue where the problem is. So that's kind of handy. It also find variable declaration. So if I click on person name here, find variable declaration, you can see it just took me back up one line. Again, pretend this is a real project rather than Hello World. But it gives you the idea there of what it can do. Yeah, there's some other interesting things there, but this isn't supposed to be a thorough and complete. I'm just trying to show you mostly the features that are interesting that may not be in other editors or IDEs that you're familiar with. So, all right. Yep, talked about that. Okay, I'll show you the Perl-specific refactoring, and then we'll get into the regular expression editor. So it's got some tools under the refactor menu where you can rename a variable, change style from camel case to underscores and different variations of that. If you've done it wrong or you prefer to write it one way, but the company standard says you do it a different way, well then, hey, you can just convert it before you make your commit. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll just show you an example here real quick of renaming a variable. I'll just change this to name. The fun part about this is you notice it didn't touch this one. It actually has a concept of lexical scope, and so it knows the scope of the variable that you're in. And it's actually using I believe PPI to do that. I don't remember what that stands for, but basically it's a Perl module that mostly parses Perl. Not entirely, but mostly does. But that's how it can figure out things like that in the lexical scope. So anyways, that's mostly why I had this example up there, is just so you could see that. That's pretty darn slick. So you don't have to do your typical search and replace and go, oh, I don't want to replace it here, but I do want to replace it there. Yeah, exactly. So, oh yeah. This is, I'll have to admit, the regular expression. It's also, you've got debugging, which I'm not going to go through because it looks pretty much like every debugger you probably ever used. So I'm going to skip over that. This is actually the first thing I ever used this for. I literally, had Padre installed for a while, and the only time I'd ever open it was when I wanted to mess around with the regular expression that was particularly difficult. This is what I love about it. You can literally cut and paste in here, copy and paste, what you're trying to match against. And then if you see down here what is replaced, then you know basically if it's replacing the thing you want it to, then your regular expression is the way you want it to be. And what's nice about this is just that it's interactive. You can just sit and change things. You've got all your different flags up here you can turn on. You've got character classes, a bunch of, just shortcuts over here. So anyways, let's see, show substitution, there we go. So right here, it's just saying \W plus, which is just one or more word characters. Matching against foobar, this is the match text, replace it with Baz, now it's Baz bar. If we, added like space \W plus, it's gonna get the whole thing, but you get the idea, and that's what's nice is you literally just sit here and tweak it rather than tweaking it and running it through a whole program. You can just sit here and play with the regular expression until you get it right. It's brilliant. I love it. And like I said, this was the whole thing that got me into Padre in the first place. I don't even, it was one of those Google search things where I got off on a tangent and I was working on a, nasty regular expression, and somehow I ended up on the Padre website and saw that it had a regular expression editor. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll check that out. And it's been well worth the effort, so.
So do you click insert and it'll just insert that into your code, or?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I don't think I've actually ever used that, but yes,
Evidently it does.
that's exactly what it does. So there you go.
So,
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, good question. I had never actually tried it for that because usually my code was somewhere else, but anyways,
Can you highlight an existing regular expression in your code and go into the editor and have it?
that's another good question.
I was wondering about that other feature.
I don't know.
This is exactly it right there. That's pretty cool.
You can also see at the bottom that I've got syntax check is running on here, so it's going to not be happy about this.
Can you get a list
Until-
of variables since it says?
Yeah, actually, I don't know why it's being so futzy because actually it's supposed to be giving me the completion there, but it seems to be jumping around for some reason. Probably if I turn the syntax check off. And again, this is probably the fact that it's a pre-release. Come on. What did I just do now? Oh, there we go. So anyways, I'll just select that. Oh, of course. Yes, I can select things, believe it or not. Go under Tools, Regular Expression Editor. Yep, there you go. So it'll actually do that.
That is
Another good question. Yeah, that's nice to know.
very good. Yeah, it's aware of, context aware of
Yes.
regular expressions.
So, all right, we covered that. The next thing that really caught my attention after I, realized that it did more things than the regular expression editor, which I knew it did, but the thing that really caught my attention was what I'm going to spend most of the rest of the time are plugins. As you know, a lot of programs, virtually, it seems like almost every program uses plugins anymore. So it's not like it's a novel concept, but it is a really cool concept in that if you're a Perl programmer, you can hack on your editor and you can create your own plugins that do, maybe convenience things that nobody else would want to do, but you can do it and make your own plugin. Or you can do something that a lot of people would want to do and, release it to CPAN. So this is basically the plugin manager where you can enable and disable. It's actually even got one called My Plugin. I won't go into this one, but it actually gives you the basic shell of a plugin so that you can go in and play around with it and kind of figure out how to do your own plugins, which of course is where I started. So this popularity contest one, I think, gives them statistics on which different plugins get used and other usages, just so they have some feedback from how users use the editor itself. It's all anonymized. So let's go to the next slide, and then we'll go back to the editor again and finish off with the plugins. Okay, installing Padre. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. Most obvious, straightforward one is go to the website and get it. For Windows, it's actually really slick because you get Do What I Mean Perl, which is basically Strawberry Perl plus Padre plus other things, and plus all the nice stuff you get with Strawberry Perl. So, yes.
If you have Strawberry Perl already installed, does it know that you have it installed? And
No, actually it doesn't, because I ran into that, and I actually just ended up uninstalling Strawberry once I had this, because hey, it's the same thing.
Does it point to the latest version of Strawberry, or?
No, I think it's all, the versions are tied together, so whatever you download here is tied to a certain version of Perl. You could probably, if you wanted to, get it to work on your own on a different version, but that's how it's going to come. It's just whatever you're going to get. And most of your popular Linux distros, a lot of them have it in their repos anyway, so you don't even have to download it here. You can just install it with apt-get or yum or whatever your favorite tool is. So you can get it off of CPAN with the disclaimer. There are a ton of dependencies. So you may want to install this one first and then install this to get the updated versions of, because obviously this one will give you the dependencies you need anyways that are available in the repositories. And then you'll only have to install the ones that need to be updated. The rest of them will already be there. So that's a little bit of a time-saving trick. Or you can get it from Subversion, which I give you the link to. So that comes to the whole reason why I'm running the bleeding edge version, is because I've decided that I want to try to hack on it, and pretty much that's what you want to do if you want to hack on it. So I just checked out the whole Subversion repository, which also has, as you saw, that I didn't even scroll down, but there are a ton of plugins there as well. I'm probably just going to start hacking on plugins. There's a VI compatibility plugin, which is not very far along, but pretty much that would be the barrier between me using Padre on a daily basis and only occasionally using it. So that's kind of where my interest lies, and I've always had this perverse idea that I wanted to recreate Vim in Perl anyway. So somebody else has already done a lot of the work for me, so what the heck? Yes, I may be insane. The jury's still out on that one. So any questions there? Different ways depending on what system you're on. Windows is actually the easiest because it does everything for you, but obviously, as Windows usually is, it's the least flexible. You get what you get. So, all right. Now, if you're actually going to hack on it, like I'm doing, I've basically given a summary of, this is a link to a blog off of the main Padre site, but I've just kind of distilled it down to the main steps that I used, and I was able to get it working on my laptop here and my dev box at home, both running Linux Mint 13. So Linux Mint, if you're not aware, is based off of Ubuntu, so very good chance you can get it working very easily with these instructions on Ubuntu as well. Any other distro, you're on your own. So I have no idea. This is just how I got it working. So basically, this right here just gets you the GTK development libraries plus a whole lot of other junk that you need in general, you know, header files and all that stuff that you need just to develop on this stuff. You install CPAN Minimus because we use it later on down here. I don't know a whole lot about it, and this talk isn't about that, so I'm just going to keep right on going. Make sure you have Subversion installed so you can check everything out. Install module install, and then install module install Padre plugin if you're going to be actually hacking on plugins, because that you will need. You get an error, which if you read carefully actually tells you exactly what you need to do. If you don't read it carefully, you go, why is this not working? So anyway, definitely don't want to forget this step if you're working on plugins. And so you just run CPAN Minimus here in the directory where you've checked everything out in your working directory, and it goes through and installs all the dependencies that you need for you right there. So then you just do Perl makefile.pl, just like you do with everything else, make test, and then it creates a file name .dev in that directory. You can, however, like I've been doing, do sudo make install, and then you just type Padre, like I have been doing in the other window, and you can get it system-wide. Most people probably don't want to do that, especially if they're already using Padre as their daily editor. You probably don't want to be editing with an editor that's bleeding edge while you're trying to do editing, because that could just cause problems. So, well, in my case, though, I was editing in Vim, so it didn't cause me issues. And so because it's not my primary editor at this point, I don't care that I've got it's installed system-wide. Bleeding edge version. So, any questions there?
So the /dev is your development directory.
Well, that's actually Padre. It's just called, I don't know why they called it dev, but that's just the name they gave it in that directory. Exactly. It's just a development version that's just locally installed in the Padre directory or wherever you checked out your CVS version to.
The mainstream Padre wouldn't have /dev.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't have this here, but I did a sudo make install, and then it actually calls it Padre, which makes sense, and then puts it in user local bin or something like that. I can't remember. Okay. All right. And like I said, basically, I tried to do a good job of these, and today I found out that I did do a good job of it, because I did not have a CVS version running on my laptop earlier today. But I decided, for reasons I won't go into, mostly due to me not having enough time to finish this presentation until just a couple hours ago, I had to do this. So I did follow my own instructions, and they did work. So I was happy about that, yeah. That was definitely a happy thing. Okay, now we're going to get into the rest of it.
Is this on an Apple commercial?
Actually, no. Forget the Apple advertising. It's only the cat and this that you should pay attention to. Originally, when I wanted to do this talk, I wanted to do a plugin, because I thought, there's no point really in showing this unless I show you how to do a plugin. Well, I had like 2 or 3 different ideas which were just impossible. I did not have enough time to do. And then I picked a third one, which I thought, oh, that shouldn't be too hard. And of course, I barely got it done in time. But what I just decided is I'm going to just do a rudimentary plugin for lol code, because I wanted to do it to support, number one, MIME type, file extension, language that wasn't already supported. And it did not already have support for this, so that I could figure out all those different parts. And I also wanted a language that was small, just so I didn't have to mess with a whole ton of keywords and learning a whole language. Full disclaimer, I don't know how to write low code at all. I copied a couple of examples because that's not really what this talk is about. I'm just using this as my example. So just so you know, if you ask me to write low code, I will not be able to do it. All right, so now we're done with slides. Now we will look at some more code. So I'm going to open up my other session. And no, I don't want to save this. And here we go. And actually, I want to turn back on my syntax check. All right. The funny thing here is this particular program, as you can probably guess, is Hello World. It's actually off the front page of lowcode.com. The funny thing is, though, it's actually not correct anymore because they changed the code standard. But actually, it turned out beautifully for me that it didn't work because I actually wanted code that didn't work. This is what my module does for the most part. It does one other small thing, but basically it does a syntax check. And if I double click on here, take you right to where the error is. So basically, the long and the short of it is, it does not like this line here. And you can see it's still not happy. The reason it's still not happy, so this is about all I know about low code, is enough that I figured out how to fix this. It wants to have a version of low code that you're using there. And so now it parsed it fine, it's happy. So unfortunately, I really, really wanted to have syntax highlighting done. That was the whole reason that I wanted a small language. Just that did not happen. I was lucky to get what I got done. So this right here, you can tell this is a more up-to-date version of Hello World that I copied from somewhere else. I just left this one in here just to show you right away. It parses. Also, by the way, that's how you do a comment. BTW. This is just a comment. So anyway. Now let's look at the actual code that I wrote. All right, now you can see what I was talking about earlier with the project. Even though this is in the lib directory, it's down a few layers. Let's see, this is actually plug-in.
Doug, I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, yeah,
Can you
it's fine.
blow up the text just a little bit?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
How's that?
Yeah, it's
I can actually shrink this window down too now.
No, that's good. Thanks.
Of course, I'm just having a hard time looking sideways and operating a mouse at the same time. Okay, this is basically the first file that you go with is you just create, or actually, no, sorry, that's document, not plugin. I want to have plugin. Okay, here we go. So I got these out of order. Is first you want the plugin file. So you can call it whatever you want, but I just looked at a lot of other plugins and this seemed to be the way the naming convention went. You use Padre plugin, which makes sense. We're not importing anything. We use Padre WX, and any of the Padre modules you see in the WX namespace are dealing directly with WxWidgets. They definitely indicate that so you know which parts are Padre and which parts are separating you out from the WxWidgets underbelly of everything. So we just use the base class of Padre plugin, set up a version, and here I'm setting up, these are all the different modules that this will load when it's enabled. I just set them up here so that it's convenient. You'll see the method down here to unload them all when somebody disables it, because you don't want to keep that stuff running if they've decided to disable your plugin for whatever reason, like it's misbehaving or something. That brings up actually a good point I wanted to make too. The thing I actually like about this is you do have deep access into the editor. Obviously, though, that comes with another sharp edge. That is the sharp edge of that you can literally crash the editor with your plugin. Trust me, I did it several times today. So anyway, you're running a little bit of risk, but I actually like being able to get deeper access into the editor so that I can really make it do exciting things. So far, this is not terribly exciting, but this is mostly was for me to get my feet wet so that I can then go on to do more interesting things. And not to mention, get a free presentation out of it. What the heck? Okay, all right, so basically, you've just got a method that returns the name of your plugin so that it knows what to show in the list, in the manager. You set up here the different interfaces depending on which Padre classes that you're basing your classes off of. You specify a version here, and it will not allow you to enable it if all those versions are not met, because it may mean that a certain method you're trying to use didn't exist in an older version or something like that. So from what I've seen, the error checking on the plugins themselves in the manager are actually quite nice. I mean, I've even had some in there that are flat out broken, and maybe they've since been fixed. But anyways, the version I had was broken. And when I tried to enable it, it says, you know, there was an error, gives you a button, you click on it, and it'll show you exactly what the error is. So if you want to go in and fix it, it tells you exactly what the problem is. All right, then you register your documents based on the MIME types. A lot of them you'll see are the X dash. If you know about MIME types, those are just experimental, not incredibly formal or real MIME types. So what I'm saying though, for this MIME type, I want this class to handle it. And that's this other file I'll get over to in a minute. You can see the highlighter here. This doesn't work because I didn't get it working, but I was at least trying to get it work. So you set up the MIME types and the highlighters. What's nice though is you can actually have a whole list. Since this is an array ref, you can have several different highlighters. So the end user can actually pick which one they prefer. If there's one that happens to work better than the other one, they get to pick which one they use. So you can have several different. Oh, go ahead.
Can you combine highlighters so that, say, for example, HTML, JavaScript, CSS?
That's a very good question that I actually had myself, and I don't have the answer to that yet, unfortunately. But hopefully I will at some point. I'm probably planning on giving some more presentations on the plugins that I develop. And that's one of the things I want to do, is actually have non-HTML tags embedded in HTML and having it handle those correctly and do the syntax highlighting and all that stuff for that. So don't know the answer to that question yet, but I'm hoping the answer is yes, because that's one of the things I want to do. All right, any other questions? All right. Okay, you can see most of this stuff is pretty basic. You just, you know, there's certain predefined methods you have to have. Some of them are optional, some of them are required, but it's in the docs. And also, like I said, in the My plugin, gives you a good starting place for knowing what you need to have. So then I create a menu. This is not required. I just did an about menu just to illustrate doing it. But if you had something particular you wanted to do with your plugin, like view it in an external browser or something, or an external program, you could actually set up your own menus in here to do those things, and it will work only for files that are of the MIME type that you've got your plugin set up for. So right now, it's under the Tools menu here, and that's all it does. Just gives you a nice little About menu, which actually I haven't done it yet, but my idea is whenever I need to, I'll probably use this as a nice little bugger, kind of, or debugger like you do with alert in JavaScript. I'll just throw some values in there so I can just hit the About button and see what's going on. So anyways, that's what the show is all about, not terribly interesting here. You set the name, set the author. I've just got some text there. That's it. Nothing terribly interesting going on. And then this is what actually makes the window pop up, is WX About Box. So.
Was the butterfly image part of the About Box dialog?
Yeah, that was all built in. I didn't do that. Yep. All right, and this is plugin disable, and this is where I was talking about all the children I had up here. This is what it does. It just loops through those and unloads all of them, so that if somebody disables your plugin, it doesn't leave junk floating around. So, all right, that's it for this file. Oh yeah, you can tell. See, this is how big of a rush I was in. This still says YAML. So yeah, thanks to all you guys out there who had already written plugins, because I stole a whole bunch of code from all over the place. I can't thank you by name because I was in too big of a hurry. But obviously YAML was one of them that I stole code from. So anyways, all right. Now this is the actual document class that you remember based on the MIME type we registered over here. We told it that we want that class to handle it. So now we're over in this class. Our base is Padre document, skip most of the rest of that stuff. You've got certain tasks that you have set up. If you're not using that particular function, you just return an empty string, and that just indicates you're not doing it. But task syntax, you can tell that's the thing I'm actually running here, and I tell it, this is the class I want to do for that particular task. And then you've got the comment line string, which I have to admit, I haven't quite figured out what this does yet. You're indicating what a comment looks like in the particular language you're in, but I haven't quite figured out what it does, because I've tried doing different things with it, so either I haven't done it right or I don't know exactly how it works yet. So actually, I'll go ahead and use, I don't have the syntax file open. I left that closed just so I can open it here, so you can see you got easy navigation to all of that stuff. And I'll also come back over to this window to show you, whoops, not on the CPAN one. I'll bring this back out again. The outline, how it looks a little better and different, where you've actually got things broken down by module and method, and the pragmas you're using, that kind of thing. And this again just gives you your methods and function lists.
So does it do multiple projects on the same outline, or nested projects or anything like that?
At this point, it's not actually the project, it's just the file you're on yourself. So you'll notice it changes when I change tabs. Sorry about that. I thought I killed this the first time. All right.
So that means that whatever tab you're on, it just knows where.
Yeah, and obviously you can double click on these, and it just alphabetizes them. That's one of the preferences you can set up. It doesn't have to be in alphabetical order if you don't want it to be. Just so happens that's the default, and I didn't change it. Okay, so now we're to the actual meat of what the heck it is we're trying to do, which is we want to have it just run. I think it's like every 2 seconds or so it does a syntax check on your program. Well, what I did was just picked a random low-code implementation. There's a whole bunch of them. I just happened to pick one in C because it looked like it was relatively up to date with the latest version standard. Again, I don't really care. I'm not going to write anything in low code. But anyways, looked like it was still well supported, up to date, and it was supposedly one of the faster ones. And I figured since this is running every 2 seconds, I definitely don't want to be running, a slow syntax checker. So let me make this a little bigger. Does that look better for you guys over there? Okay. All right, basically new is not doing anything except just calling super new. And this part actually, pretend it isn't here because I haven't quite figured out what this does yet. So again, I have to give the full disclaimer. just barely started using Padre like maybe a month ago, and I've only been doing plugin stuff for the last week. So a lot of stuff I don't know yet, but hopefully next time I do a presentation, I can answer a lot of these questions that I don't know yet. All right, the method syntax, that's what we actually care about. That's what it's looking for to call. And so we get self, our object, we get the text, which is the full text that's in the editor. And then I'm just using file temp because it's nice and convenient, because since I'm not with Perl, you can obviously do like an eval or something and do it all in memory. But since I'm actually using an external program to do this for me, I need to write it all, the text in my editor, out to a temporary file first, and then have it run that, and then tell me whether or not there were any errors.
And so
Question?
File temp is that's just going to, of course, use the Unix temp infrastructure, so to speak, to make that happen. That's what.
Yeah, it creates, I don't remember all the things, but it does several things to try to be very safe, that you don't have any file name collisions,
Right,
and
right.
yeah. So basically it's just creating an easy way to create a temporary file that it shouldn't be clobbered by anything else.
Right.
So, all right. And then basically just setting to UTF-8 mode, because I believe the default encoding is UTF-8 on all of these. And then here's where I'm printing the text out to the file, close the file. And then right here, I'm just running an open with a pipe. I'm redirecting standard error to standard in, and then standard out, and then standard out to dev null, because all I care about is standard error. If the thing runs, I don't want to see hi world, which is what you're going to get on standard out. I don't care about that. That goes to dev null. All I care about is if something goes to standard error, that means something blew up. So I just set up an array to store my errors. I loop through standard error that's coming from LCI, which is low code code interpreter or something. I don't remember what it stands for.
So that's actually doing the interpretation?
Exactly. This is the C program that I downloaded and installed that somebody else wrote. And it's just, again, running it against the file name, which is the temp file name we generated earlier. So it just runs, and if I get nothing on standard error, it succeeded. If I get anything on standard error, it failed in some way. And so then what I do is I parse the error message. Originally, I was just printing these out to Padre standard error so that I could see what they look like. And I just determined that basically it was file name, line number, error message. So that's all this regular expression is doing. But I'm skipping file name because that's my temp file name, right? I don't care about that. The user doesn't care about that. They don't want to see it. So we skip over, we grab the line number here, and then we grab the whole rest of everything, which is whatever the error message is. And the reason we're looping through is in case it's giving us multiple errors. So far, I've only gotten it to give me one error, so I don't even know if this, since this is an interpreter, it may just die on the first error, and that's all you ever get. So that I don't really know, but if you were dealing with some other kind of language, you may actually get a whole bunch of errors, and you would be able to go through them. So then basically, I populate a structure here that Padre expects to get returned, where it's got the line number, it's got the file name, where now you can see I'm using the actual file's file name, and then type F, which I'm assuming is fatal. I didn't bother to look that up, but I'm assuming that means it's a fatal error, and then whatever the error message was that I got up here. Just push it onto the array, at the end, return the array. And, whoops, that is where we get this here when I put this back the way it was. So you'll see it knows what line it is because I got that out of the error message. It knows the file name because I've got that information from the editor itself. And then this is the error message. So that's basically what it does for you. Obviously, the benefit, you could just have some random error message display down here, but the benefit of putting it in that structure is you can double click on it and then it takes you to where the actual line number. Go ahead, Brian.
So you might be getting to this, but sorry if I'm jumping ahead. But,
Oh no.
how do you put the file return information into that window?
Oh, I don't. Padre, basically the whole process that we were going through before in these first two files is the registration process. I don't know what else to talk. So I'm registering my plugin
Gotcha.
by setting up known method names that Padre knows about. So it knows I'm going to call this method in whatever class they called
Knows
it,
what to do with
and it knows what to do with it. So because,
That's what I missed.
yeah, in this one I'll show you right here. Whenever it tries to run a syntax check task, which I said it runs like every 2 seconds or whatever. In fact, if I remember right, that's configurable as well, so you can change. Because 2 seconds is actually quite fast. You probably don't want it that fast because then every key you hit, it's got a different error popping up or the same error over and over again. So anyways, yes, that tells it the class. In this class then, it's looking for a syntax method. And so it just calls my syntax method. And then again, it's expecting a certain data structure to be returned, which is basically a reference, reference to an array of hash references, which has this information in it.
Gotcha.
And then, so if I had 5 errors, I'd have 5 of those showing up. I could double click on each one and it would take me right to the line number where the error occurred.
Great. No,
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't realize how that was tied in there.
Okay,
Thanks.
yep, that's how it does it, is basically you're just telling, it's giving you a known interface and you're just telling it, okay, this is where you find the things. And now when this event happens, you know where to go and what to call to make it happen. Or not happen. It may crash the browser, which, or the editor, which I did several times when I was trying to get this to work. But yeah,
you had vision.
well, and it gave me decent error messages, and I was usually able to figure out what the problem was without too much trouble. So anyway, well, about on time. So that's all I have. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it.